The Awakening. The morning fog rolled across San Francisco Bay, shrouding the massive silhouette of the U.S. Vigilant in a ghostly embrace. Commander Elena Reyes, retired, stood on the deck of the obsolete battleship, her weathered hands gripping the cold steel railing. At 62, she had spent more years as the ship's curator than she had in active service. The Vigilant was a relic of a bygone era, a World War I battleship preserved as a floating museum, a monument to human conflicts that seems so distant now. Another day at the office, Elena muttered, watching the first tourists of the day approaching the gangway. School children chattered excitedly below, most interested in the holographic displays and interactive exhibits rather than the actual history of the vessel. Few appreciated that unlike other museum ships that had been gutted for display, the Vigilant had been maintained in near operational condition, a requirement of the Historical Preservation Act of 2052. Most taxpayers considered it a waste of resources. Elena knew better. She made her morning rounds, nodding to the handful of staff, mostly veterans and history enthusiasts, who maintained the exhibits. Her footsteps echoed through the massive gun turrets, each housing 3 16-inch guns that hadn't fired in anger for over a century. The engines, the fire control systems, even the radar, all kept in working order through monthly maintenance routines when the museum was closed to visitors. Just another day until it wasn't. The first indication came when Elena's neural implant suddenly went silent. The constant stream of updates and messages simply stopped. Frowning, she made her way to her small office near the bridge, where an ancient emergency receiver, kept as part of a historical display, was blinking red. The message was brief and terrifying. ALERT. Unknown hostile forces detected near Saturn. Fleet engagement in progress. Civilian casualties reported. This is not a drill. Elena felt her heart race as she accessed more information. The data painted a grim picture. An alien armada had appeared without warning at the edge of the solar system. Earth's defense fleet, with its energy weapons and quantum shields, had engaged the enemy but was reporting heavy losses. Her neural implant buzzed again with a private message, one she had been briefed about but never expected to receive. Protocol Lazarus now active. Acknowledge. Her hands trembled slightly as she confirmed receipt. When she had taken this curator position 15 years ago, she had been told about Lazarus, a contingency plan that seemed absurd at the time. The idea that museum ships might ever be needed for actual combat had seemed like paranoia from military planners unwilling to let go of the past. Now it seemed prescient. Elena initiated the museum evacuation protocol. Ladies and gentlemen, her voice echoed through the ship's functioning announcement system. Due to unforeseen circumstances, we will be closing early today. Please proceed to the exits in an orderly fashion. All ticket holders will receive a full refund. As confused visitors filed out, Elena began sending coded messages to specific individuals throughout the Bay Area. Former naval officers, retired engineers, military historians, all people who had been carefully selected and briefed about this possibility. They were coming. The reserve crew, those who had trained in secret for years, were on their way. The sun was setting when Captain Marcus Chen arrived. At 55, his hair had gone completely gray, but his posture remained military straight as he strode onto the bridge where Elena waited. "Commander Reyes," he said formally, "reporting as ordered. I wish it were under better circumstances." "Captain," Elena returned the greeting, automatically falling back into military protocol. "The ship is yours." Chen looked around the bridge, at the mixture of restored vintage equipment and carefully hidden modern interfaces. Status report. Reactor can be at full power in 8 hours. Weapons will take longer. We'll need to break the ammunition seals. The main challenge will be crew. We have 40 people on the reserve list, but we'll need more. Chen nodded, already studying the tactical displays. The news was worse than when Elena had first checked. The alien fleet had broken through the outer defense line at Jupiter. The quantum shields and plasma weapons of Earth's modern vessels were proving ineffective against the enemy's technology. They're adapting too quickly to our advanced systems, Chen muttered. Their countermeasures are neutralizing everything we throw at them. Elena watched as more people arrived on the ship, moving with purpose despite their age. What about pilots? Working on it, Chen replied. We have 6 Sea Harriers in the hold that still function. They're antiques, but they fly. We've contacted some airshow performers who know how to handle older aircraft. A loud alarm cut through the air. Chen pulled up the alert on the main screen, his face grim. The Defense Fleet's flagship has been destroyed. Admiral Williams is dead. The aliens will reach Earth orbit within 48 hours. Elena looked through the bridge windows, where the lights of San Francisco sparkled in the evening darkness. Soon those lights might go dark forever. Well, Chen said, straightening his shoulders, I guess we better get to work, Commander. Let's show these aliens what an old Earth battleship can do. Throughout the night, the Vigilant transformed. The holographic camouflage that usually hid the ship's military features was deactivated. Emergency lights cast everything in a red glow as the crew worked frantically to prepare weapon systems that hadn't been used in combat for over a century. In the engine room, retired engineers coaxed the massive turbines to life. In the ammunition storage, crews carefully broke the seals on shells that had been preserved in vacuum chambers. On the flight deck, pilots familiarized themselves with aircraft that used no AI assistance, relying instead on human skill and mechanical controls. Elena found herself in the Fire Control Center, helping calibrate targeting systems that blended vintage equipment with modern interfaces. The ship vibrated around her as the engines built power, a deep thrumming that she felt in her bones. Commander, called out Dr. Sarah Williams, a military historian who had arrived hours earlier. You need to see this. Elena joined her at a display showing footage from the battle near Mars. The alien ships were sleek and powerful, their weapons slicing through Earth vessels with ease. But something caught her eye. Play that back, she ordered. Slow it down. The footage replayed, showing an alien ship destroying an Earth vessel. But just before the Earth ship exploded, a piece of debris, a simple metal fragment, had struck the alien hull and penetrated. Their shields, Elena said slowly, realization dawning. They're designed to stop energy weapons and guided projectiles. They might not be as effective against simple kinetic weapons, like 16-inch shells from a World War I battleship. Sarah finished, eyes wide. Word spread quickly through the ship. The crew worked with renewed purpose, hope replacing desperation. Perhaps the old ways might succeed where modern technology had failed. Dawn broke over San Francisco Bay as Captain Chen called all hands to battle stations. The Vigilant's engines roared to full power, black smoke billowing from its stacks as it moved away from its mooring for the first time in decades. The ancient hull creaked and groaned, but held firm. On the bridge, Chen stood with Elena at his side, watching as the first alien ships appeared on their radar, descending through the atmosphere toward the city. All hands. Chen's voice echoed through every compartment. In a few minutes, we're going to show these aliens something they've never seen before. Every system on this ship was built to be tough, reliable, and deadly. The aliens think they've won because they beat our modern fleet. They don't know about us yet. He nodded to the weapons officer. Target the lead ship. Fire when ready. The Vigilant shuddered as its massive guns elevated, tracking the approaching alien vessel. There was a moment of absolute silence, then a thunderous roar as the first 16-inch shell was fired in anger in over a century. The alien ship, unprepared for such primitive weaponry, took the hit directly. Its shields, tuned for energy weapons, failed to stop the massive projectile. The explosion lit up the morning sky as the vessel broke apart. Direct hit, shouted the weapons officer, incredulity in his voice. Chen allowed himself a small smile. Target the next ship, and get me the Pentagon. Tell them we found a way to fight back. As the Vigilant engaged the enemy, Elena received reports that other museum ships worldwide were being activated. The U.S. Missouri in Pearl Harbor, the HMS Belfast in London, Even old submarines were being brought back to life. The aliens had come expecting to face humanity's most advanced technology. Instead, they were facing its history, and history, it seemed, still had teeth. The Reckoning. 3 days into the battle for Earth, the U.S. Vigilant limped through the smoke-filled air of the Pacific. Its starboard side was scorched black from a glancing hit, but the old battleship refused to die. Captain Chen stood on the bridge, studying the tactical display with bloodshot eyes. "Status report," he ordered, voice hoarse from shouting commands through the smoke-filled corridors. "Engines at 70%, Captain," replied the chief engineer over the comm. "We've sealed the breach in compartments 12 through 14. Guns 1 and 2 operational, Gun 3 still undergoing repairs." Elena Reyes entered the bridge, her uniform stained with oil and blood. She'd spent the last 4 hours in the medical bay, helping tend to the wounded. Casualties: 23 injured, 7 critical, 4 dead, Chen answered grimly. "But we sank 4 alien ships. Not bad for a museum piece." The initial success of the Vigilant had sparked a global response. Around the world, mothballed vessels were being hastily recommissioned. Weapons that had been deemed obsolete decades ago were brought out of storage. The aliens, while still formidable, were struggling to adapt to humanity's impromptu strategy. "We've received new orders," Chen said, pointing to the display. "All surviving vessels are to rendezvous at these coordinates. The Admiralty is planning a coordinated strike." The coordinates marked a point in the South Pacific, far from any population centers. Elena studied them, frowning. "That's the middle of nowhere, Captain." "Exactly. We're changing tactics. Instead of defending cities, we're going to draw them into a trap." The Vigilant changed course, its engines pushing the old hull as fast as they dared. As they approached the rendezvous point, Elena was astounded to see dozens of ships appearing on their radar, museum pieces, training vessels, even civilian craft that had been hastily armed with whatever weapons could be mounted. "It's a hodgepodge fleet," muttered Sarah Williams, who had proven herself invaluable as a tactical advisor. "But looking at the alien response patterns, that might be exactly what we need." The aliens had shown remarkable adaptability against consistent attacks. Their shields would reconfigure within minutes to counter whatever weapon was used against them. But they struggled when faced with multiple types of attacks simultaneously. Energy weapons from one direction, kinetic from another, electromagnetic from a third. "Chaos," Chen nodded. "They can't adapt to chaos." Admiral Kenzo Takahashi, commanding from the Japanese museum ship Mikasa, had reached the same conclusion. His plan was bold, perhaps suicidal, but it was the best hope humanity had. The impromptu fleet would split into 5 battle groups, each using different tactics and weapons. While the aliens were distracted, a 6th group, led by the Vigilant, would target the alien flagship. Intelligence suggested it contained the central command structure for the entire armada. As night fell, the crew of the Vigilant prepared for what might be their final battle. In the mess hall, Elena found people writing letters to loved ones, praying, or simply sitting in silence. She joined a group of veterans, some of whom she had served with decades ago. "Never thought we'd be back in action," said James Rodriguez, a former gunnery sergeant now serving as the Vigilant's Master Chief. "Especially not on this old rust bucket." "She may be old," Elena replied, patting the bulkhead affectionately, "but she's tough. And sometimes, the old ways work best." "To the old ways." Then Rodriguez raised his coffee mug in toast. At 400 hours, the battle began. The 5 diversionary groups attacked the alien fleet from multiple vectors, using everything from electromagnetic pulses to ballistic missiles to crude but effective kamikaze drones. The alien response was immediate and deadly, but scattered, exactly as Admiral Takahashi had hoped. The Vigilant, accompanied by 3 other battleships and a hastily assembled wing of antique fighter planes, approached the alien flagship from its blind side. The massive vessel resembled a metallic squid, its central body surrounded by tentacle-like appendages that glowed with energy. "All hands to battle stations," Chen ordered, his voice calm despite the tension evident in his rigid posture. "Prepare main batteries for salvo fire." The gun crews worked with practiced precision, loading the massive shells into the breach. Delina stood in the fire control center, coordinating targeting data with the other ships. "Range 12 kilometers and closing," she reported. "All ships report ready to fire." Chen nodded. "Fire on my mark." "Mark." The Vigilant shuddered as all operational guns fired simultaneously. The other battleships followed suit, creating a barrage of shells that approached the alien flagship from multiple angles. On radar, Belena watched as swarms of the antique fighters closed in, carrying payloads of unguided bombs. Technology so simple it confused the alien defense systems. The first shells struck home, the alien shields flickering but failing to stop the kinetic force. Explosions bloomed across the flagship's surface as the fighters dropped their bombs in coordinated waves. For a moment, it seemed they had succeeded. Then the alien vessel's appendages glowed brighter, and a pulse of energy expanded outward. "Brace for impact," Chen shouted. The energy wave hit the Vigilant like a physical blow. Electrical systems failed throughout the ship, plunging sections into darkness. Emergency alarms wailed as damage reports flooded in. "Engines down. Guns 2 and 3 disabled." Multiple hull breaches reported. Chen grabbed the internal communication system. "Engineering, status." Chief Engineer Martinez's voice crackled through the static. "Direct hit to our power distribution. We're switching to backup systems, but it'll take time." Elena looked at the tactical display, heart sinking. 2 of their escort battleships were dead in the water, one visibly breaking apart. The fighter planes had been swatted from the sky like insects, and the alien flagship, though damaged, was turning its weapons toward the Vigilant. "We've hurt them," Sarah Williams said, pointing to energy fluctuations on the alien vessel, "but not enough." Chen's face was grim but determined. "We still have Gun 1 and auxiliary power. And we have something else they don't expect." He turned to Elena. "Commander Reyes, remember our special package?" Elena felt a chill run down her spine. "The nuclear shell. But sir, at this range, we won't survive anyway if that thing gets its weapons fully online again. Prepare the special round for Gun 1. When the Vigilant had been recommissioned, military command had provided one special munition, a 16-inch shell with a tactical nuclear warhead. It had been considered a weapon of absolute last resort, to be used only in the direst circumstances. Those circumstances had arrived. As the alien flagship's weapons began to glow with building energy, the crew of the Vigilant raced to load the special shell. Gun 1 elevated, targeting the most vulnerable point of the alien vessel, a breach in its hull created by the initial barrage. "Clear all decks forward of frame 30, Chen ordered. "Radiation protocols in effect." Delina watched the countdown timer on the tactical display, acutely aware that even if they succeeded, the Vigilant was too close to survive the blast unscathed. 10 seconds to firing solution," she reported, voice steady despite her racing heart. 9, 8. The alien flagship's weapons reached full charge, ready to deliver a killing blow. 3, 2, 1. Firing solution achieved. "Fire," Chen ordered. Gun 1 roared one final time, the special shell streaking toward the alien flagship. It struck precisely at the hull breach, penetrating deep into the vessel before detonating. The nuclear explosion was both beautiful and terrifying, a miniature sun blooming in the dawn sky. The Vigilant's reinforced hull groaned under the pressure wave, windows shattering and metal buckling. When the light faded, the alien flagship was gone, vaporized by the blast. The remaining alien vessels, suddenly leaderless, fell into disarray. Some began retreating immediately, while others continued fighting but with noticeably less coordination. On the Vigilance bridge, emergency systems bathed everything in red light. Fires raged throughout the ship, and the list to starboard was growing worse by the minute. "Abandon ship," Chen ordered, his voice heavy with regret. "All hands to lifeboats." As the crew evacuated, Elena took one last look at the tactical display. The alien fleet was in full retreat, pursued by Earth's remaining forces. They had won, at tremendous cost, but they had won. She followed Chen to the last lifeboat, helping wounded crew members aboard. As they pushed away from the dying battleship, they watched the U.S. Vigilant begin its final journey to the ocean floor. "She saved the world," Elena said softly. "Not bad for a museum piece." Chen nodded, a mixture of pride and sorrow in his eyes. "She reminded us of something important, that sometimes the old ways, the simple ways, are the most effective. That wisdom doesn't expire with technology." In the weeks that followed, humanity began the long process of rebuilding. The aliens had been driven from the solar system, though vigilance remained high against their potential return. Around the world, museums dedicated to military history saw record attendance as people sought to understand the technology that had saved them. In San Francisco Bay, where the U.S. Vigilant had once been moored, a new memorial took shape, not just to the ship and its crew, but to the idea that had saved humanity, that history isn't just something to be preserved behind glass, but a reservoir of knowledge and experience that might be needed again. Helena stood before this memorial 1 year later, now Admiral Reyes, charged with overseeing a new program that balanced technological advancement with the preservation of proven methods. A young naval cadet approached her, saluting crisply. "Admiral, the new class is assembled and ready for your address." Helena nodded, following the cadet to where hundreds of fresh recruits waited. These young men and women would serve on a new generation of ships, vessels that incorporated both cutting-edge technology and time-tested systems. As she began to speak, Elena thought of the Vigilant and its final battle. The old ship had taught humanity its most important lesson. True strength comes not from abandoning the past, but from carrying its wisdom into the future. The obsolete had saved the world, and humanity would not forget again.